for International Video Conference on Birding in Chile. On the phone today is Claudio Vidal, who I'll do a more full introduction in a second. He's been a bird guide in Chile for 20 years. I just want to start the call with some ground rules. We truly love participant questions. With 51 people on the call so far, we'll probably have 70, 80 today. We prefer that you text questions in, but we also have about 6 breaks during the call to ask questions. So after Claudio goes through a geographical area, he's going to cover 6 geographical areas today. We'll take a little 2 or 3 minute break for questions, and that usually goes pretty well. During those breaks, you can unmute, but in the meantime, please mute, because with 53 people on the call now, it's just better to have people muted. I even mute, to tell the truth, to keep my kids and Beck and dog out of the call. And there you go. So again, questions are welcome. Texting is best, but feel free to ask when we take a break. And all questions are welcome. And we get to 90% of all questions, and usually 100%. So ask away. Just the quick agenda today. Claudio is going to cover his favorite sites along our 3 birding regions in Chile: Central, North, and South. After each geographical area, we'll break for questions. Just a little bit more about Claudio. He's been a bird guide in Chile for over 20 years. I have known him for over a decade. We first met at the British Bird Fair well over a decade ago. We co-market our trips with his organization, same pricing, same dates, same everything. Claudio, beyond being a bird guide, has a strong interest in seabirds and marine mammals occurring in the Humboldt Current. He loves Patagonia and Antarctica. He's now finishing the writing of the Field Guide to the Birds of Chile, together with a team of other accomplished field ornithologists. He is a co-author of more than 20 books featuring birds of Patagonia, Tierra del Fuego, Antarctica, and more. He is always actively involved in some sort of ecotourism project as well. With no further ado, I introduce to you Claudio Vidal. We're now at 60 participants, and there you go. Go, my friend.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Charles, for your kind introduction, for this invitation. Thanks, Leo, for putting together this presentation, for organizing this. And thanks everybody attending this chat, this talk about a country is home for me, and I am obviously very fond. On these strange days, I hope everybody's fine. And these are wonderful tools that we can use to discuss. We have in common an interest in travel, and above all, also about birding. I must have first language is a second language, so I'm afraid that it will be some glitches there in the translation process. I hope most of what I am going to say makes sense to you, and hopefully you feel inspired to travel places, well, or why not Chile, in the near future when things are getting to normal once again. So this is a brief presentation that I would like to describe to you the things that makes the country more interesting to me, which is landscapes, the intriguing geology, the glaciers, the network of national parks and protected areas comprising over 20% of the land within the country. So that's a significant number, which preserves vital key ecosystems and an intriguing wildlife. So we are going to concentrate not just on the iconic birds that everybody wants to see or everybody have heard of, but also we would like to cover an important array of mammals, land mammals and marine mammals that are potentially are a potential part and an important part of our nature trips down here. So this is what is going to be this description. I think that every scene in Chile will be surrounded by glorious landscapes, which is a beautiful part of the trip, particularly in the south where I live, in Patagonia, and the vast landscapes of Patagonia. And there are things that also help people to relax. There are other areas to cover in a trip like this: the wine, the plants, the history of explorers. So in many aspects, I don't think that a Chile trip is just birding. You learn a lot about the natural history, about the explorers, about the local, the culture. So it's a very interesting travel option for people with a curiosity for the natural world. The country also, I think, is one on a positive note. A very positive one is that it has the attention of several authors. So recently, there are a number of very good field guides for the country. We produce ours, which is in Spanish right now, but with English names and range maps up to date. So this has been around for the last 3-4 years. But also, there are other excellent identification resources, field guides for the birds of Chile, starting with Alvaro's guide, The Birds of Chile, which was published in 2003. Then the recent one on the Steve Howell and Fabrice Schmidt, a photographic guide, which is an excellent resource, very handy, very small, very portable. And everybody's looking forward now to see this new guide, The Birds of Chile by Daniel Martinez and Gonzalo Gonzalez. So I think that that is going to be a wonderful addition, and it's just being released in the last few months. So I think that there are wonderful resources. People can start their homework, start to see the potentials, and look at these books, because it's an important part of the job, and it's a fun part of the process of seeing the potential species, and just having a taste of the bird diversity on this long and thin country. So, general features of this. There is a wonderful book called Travels in a Thin Country by Sarah Wheeler. And there are many other travel books about this intriguing country called Chile. So from the northern boundary, located in the border with Peru, all the way down to Cape Horn, in the region we call Patagonia, Tierra del Fuego, the country expands from latitude 18 to 56 degrees south, which means nearly 3,000 miles long. But it's also a very narrow country located at the western slope of the Andes chain. So that is very interesting. The boundary itself is a range of mountains, a colossal set of mountains. And then on the western flank, we have the Pacific Ocean. And as you can see in this satellite image, you have this deep trench, this deep sea trench, which is very deep, very productive. And along the entire flank of the country, we have a cold water current called the Humboldt, which is one of the most productive oceanic currents in the world. In the northern part of the country, we have the barren, lifeless, old desert, the Atacama, which is absolutely stunning, but not deprived of life, as we will see later in this presentation. In the south, we have snow-capped volcanoes, we have lush rainforest, eventually an array of fjords, channels, and islands in an area called Patagonia. So if you have this image, if you keep this image in your mind, make the exercise and try to visualize west coast of North America with a desert in Baja, Mediterranean climate in California, a lush rainforest in Washington State, and eventually tundra-like landscapes in Alaska or the Yukon. So in pretty much the same stretch of land, you have a mirror image, and you have the same ecosystems, life zones in North America and in South America. So that is an interesting fact, as you can relate on your own travels, the similarities and strong differences between the West Coast, North America, and the whole length of Chile. We can see here how close we are from the northern tip of the Antarctic Peninsula, and also this ring of islands around the Scotia Sea, starting with the Falklands, Malvinas, following with South Georgia, South Sandwich, South Orkneys. So everything is connected. I would think that the influence from Antarctic, you can really feel it here in the southern parts of Chile. And not just here, but continuing along the Humboldt Current waters. So that is a brief presentation on the geography. We are surrounded by magnificent countries to bird, such as Peru, such as Bolivia, such as Argentina. But somehow Chile is a biogeographical island because of the desert, because of the ice fields, because of the mountains and the cold water currents. We are isolated. And in many ways, Chile feels like an island. And this is not just biogeography, but it's also culturally. It's quite interesting, go through all these facts and see that we are kind of an island in the context of South America. On this presentation, we are going to go from north to south and covering 4 geographical areas: northern Chile, central Chile, the Lake District and Chiloé Island, and eventually where Chile ends and on the whole subcontinent of South America ends is Patagonia and Tierra del Fuego. So we will start from the north, the highlands. Let's go to the thin air country, regions which are absolutely picturesque, and people live there in small numbers, keeping a culture, a language. They are known as the Aymaras or the Atacameños, ancient groups of herders of the highlands. And the whole ecosystem there is barren, beautiful, wild. And people willing to visit these areas have to deal with their own physiology. You will be birding in altitudes up to 14,000 feet. So that will be 4,300 meters. So, but the trip up there is really worthwhile because you are surrounded by volcanoes, salt pans, herds of vicuñas and guanacos, and myriads of ponds filled with flamingos, and so interesting birds. One of the most iconic birds of the Andes, and one of the most sought after, is this little wader, this little shorebird called the diadem sandpiper plover, and occurring in always in small numbers. The population density is very small on this bird, but it's local. There are reliable sites around, so you can really look for them. But a birding trip up there is really productive. You are constantly being stimulated by the diversity. If you look any Chile guide, you will see that the northern tip of the country concentrate most of the species. So out of the mere 500 species present in the country, around 300, 350 occur over there. So it's very rich in species. But it's also the high Andes in this part of the mountain range is very productive in big species in the open, which are very easy to see in the space, in the open country, like the flamingos. There are 3 kinds there, and many different groups. When you look around the ravines, the gorges, the scrubland, is so productive. But particularly productive are the wetlands in the highlands, which are known locally as bofedales. The bofedales are really a magneto for waterfowl, geese, ducks, waders, and all the array of birds highly specialized to the high altitude, to a very extreme weather, very dry. And there are groups which are very difficult to see in other parts of their range. So that is something that we take in consideration here. There is a very limited number of days in Chile to cover these spectacular places. So we have to be efficient in our efforts to see key species like horned coot, like the diadem sandpiper plover, and many others. So the list is quite big, quite consistent up there, and it's fun. The conditions are really spectacular. When you go to the highlands, there is a steep slope all the way to the Pacific coast. In the Pacific coast, there is an ecosystem that we call it the fog oasis. There is this morning fog coming from the ocean, providing moisture to these valleys and the vegetation living there. And that sustains particular species. Very sadly, the bird that I'm showing here is the Chilean wood star, and it's one of the most endangered birds in Chile. It's very likely that this bird might disappear in the next 20, 30 years, even less than that. And it's all because of the habitat transformation, cutting down the trees, occurring on these valleys, replacing them by seed production facilities. So it's very dramatic to see how this tiny bird is disappearing, is vanishing in just the last few decades. So it's really unfortunate. It's one of the bad news on conservation we have in the country. Two of the most endangered species of Chile, both endemic, are hummingbirds. Chilean wood star and the striking Juan Fernandez fire crown occurring in that archipelago of central Chile. The marine coast, the country, as I said before, is influenced strongly by the Humboldt Current, by this cold water, well-oxygenated marine ecosystem with tons of food and krill and anchovies and sardines. And all this array of seabirds take advantage of that. Gray gulls, the band-tailed gull, known now as the Belcher's gull. I promised before that in each section I would like to feature some of the key mammals. This is not just a birding trip business. We are also going to have fun watching these hairy creatures. Like this kind, it's always this in this solemn posture, the mountain biscacha, one of the most charismatic rodents in the world. Herds of vicuña in the highlands are always a joy to see, and they are increasing their numbers in the country, all because of the protection. If you're lucky, and if you are extremely lucky, you can see the Latino version, a very small Latino version of snow leopard, the Andean cat, which occurs in the highlands and is extremely rare. However, my business partner Enrique is right now in the highlands looking for it on his maybe third or fourth expedition. So that was the northern part of the country. Go for it.
Okay, so I just want to open up for some questions. I mean, truly, I suspect everybody out there feels like it was a really good presentation so far. So thank you thus far. And we still have 5 more parts to go. So we'll just take a couple of questions here. And any questions that somebody would like to ask about Chile birding and wildlife in the northern part of the country? Anybody got anything? And truly, the only thing that I just want to clarify is this really is just the highlights of the tour. The actual tour is even more exquisite, which I know is hard to imagine. And there was a picture there of a pretty big group size. We do keep our group sizes to 8, correct, sir?
That's correct.
Yep. So it's a nice small group. All right. Oh, well, we got a couple questions. Oh, a question about how many species of flamingo in Chile?
Yes. Well, the flamingos are it's a small family worldwide, and Chile is blessed to have 3 species. Starting with the Chilean flamingo, which is widespread not just in Chile but also in Argentina and other parts of South America. And besides that is the 2 flamingos of the highlands, Andean flamingo, and the rarer species of flamingo is the James's flamingo, also known as Puna flamingo.
Gotcha. And then one question about how do you travel on your bird trip to northern Chile? Besides flying in, we're usually in a 50, like at a Mercedes Sprinter or 15-seater van, correct?
That's correct. So it's the space is important. Even if it's a narrow country, distances are quite long, so people need space. People need a window, so their own window. So it's basically 18-seater is more than enough for a group like this. Obviously, we have also, as you mentioned before, we have to fly between the northern part and the southern part, and that is a very, there is an efficient and diverse flight program every day. 3 airlines operate within the country, so it's very, travel is pretty smooth in the country.
Yep. Hey, just one more quick question, and then I think we'll get back to the presentation. And we will cover all the questions we've got so far. I just can't grab them at the moment. So on the tour, just on, and if you look at our website, by the way, that these tours are well described at www.pibird.com, and just navigate to Chile through the rest of South America. But there's a question about flights on the tour. The end of the day, we get 1 to the north, 1 back to Santiago, right? And then 1 Santiago to the south, and then south and back. So 4 flights in all, correct?
That is correct. So starting the one to the north, which is one in, one out. Then from Santiago, you go overland to Puerto Montt. From Puerto Montt, you can fly back to Santiago if your trip ends there. If you continue in the southern extension, then you need to take the 2-hour flight from Puerto Montt to Punta Arenas, which is my hometown.
Exactly.
And then fly back to Santiago.
And the main tour is 13 days, 12 nights. The northern pre-trip extension is 6 days, 5 nights. And the southern post-trip extension is 6 days, 5 nights. Trust me on that, my friend. I count days a little different. I do them like our competition does.
Mhm.
And so,
Well,
you know, days and nights. The thing is, you got to look at the nights. But that's, I hope, the quick answer there. Okay, I'm going to let you go on because you've got some ground to cover, my friend. But do not feel rushed. Thank you. Go, my friend.
thank you.
I'm hopping on.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Charles. It's always difficult to shift locations because one thing that I like about Chile is that every day is quite different from the next one. One day you will be birding in the highlands, the other day in the desert, in an oasis, a pelagic trip, then back to the central Chile. In central Chile is where most of the population of the country lives. We are a nation of 18 million people. And then pretty much half of that population lives between Santiago and Paraíso and Viña del Mar. This is an area which holds most of the endemic species of the country. Therefore, you can tell that there is pressure on wildlife, and many ecosystems are threatened, are being modified, particularly wetlands. So that is the thing, that we are normally changing the itineraries from year to year because we are looking for prospects which are less busy. I think that here, central Chile, we try to be very, just to skip the city and base in the periphery in order to have an easy access to the mountains, to the lower valleys, the same along the coast, away from cities, or trying to be away from urban areas. So we have easy access to national parks or to the coast. I like this area a lot. It offers excellent wildlife experiences, but one of the most important experiences is the pelagic trip, the boat trip to the Pacific Ocean, to experience, to see that magnificent diversity of tube noses. So everybody is eager to see albatrosses, petrels, shearwaters, diving petrels, the stone petrels. And besides that, Peruvian booby, terns, penguins. So it's really extraordinary. It's an extraordinary trip that most of the people consider one of the highlights of the itinerary. In a regular trip, you have this constant progression of seabirds. The guide normally starts yelling, screaming, oh, there is a black-browed albatross there, Salvin's albatross there. And believe me, sometimes it's very difficult to catch up because you feel a little bit overwhelmed, or sometimes you just miss one big albatross among many other albatrosses. It's difficult to set your eyes on one particular bird. That's my point. So it's a fascinating experience. It's not just the albatrosses, but also the smaller tube noses, the most challenging ones to see and to identify quickly at sea are the pterodroma petrels, the gadfly petrels. So when you're looking at any Chile guide, you will see that the list of potential species of petrels, shearwaters, is quite substantial and is a challenge, and is and and it's one of the most joyful moments. For me to be at sea, that's my place on earth. It's incredible just to be surrounded by those seabirds, hear them screaming, gathering around the boat. And sometimes you have a marine mammal passing by, maybe a sei whale or sperm whale or a pod of dusky dolphins or even the southern right whale dolphin. Fascinating seabirds here. Probably one of the stars is Inca tern, a fantastic seabird which has been increasingly being more common in the southern part of its range. It's coming all the way from Peru, occurring in the northern part of the country along the desert, but it's spreading south, Peruvian booby. So you have a really an area that is reminiscent to any great pelagic region in the world, like Monterey Bay in California, like the Benguela Current in Africa, like New Zealand in Kaikoura. So you will have the wildlife experience in a pelagic trip like this will be of that caliber, a great one. I mentioned that some of the wetlands in the central part of the country are one of the most endangered ecosystems, being drained by farmers, filled, so they have been abused. And this is a shame because you're affecting incredible birds living in those dense regions. One of the most iconic birds of Chile that everybody in the country is familiar with is the loica. And I was mentioning before in the bird book section that we have a big selection of field guides. But this book, written by Pablo Neruda, or Nobel laureate, is also about birds. Neruda was a birder, and among the many species he describes by little pieces of poetry on this book there is a magnificent poem on the loica, on the long-tailed meadowlark, which is one of the most familiar species within the country, occurring from coastal areas to the Andean foothills. The Mediterranean part of the country is very similar to California. Instead of chaparral, we have the matorral. And matorral is an endemic Mediterranean ecosystem with its own flora and gathering a lot of the birds. And most of the endemic species occur here. Giant hummingbird is not an endemic species, as occurs also in the highlands of Peru and in other areas. But when I am referring to endemic species, I'm talking about these elusive, skulking tapaculos. And the mustache turca is not necessarily a skulking species. It's quite showy, it's conspicuous. You see this bird with big feet running on the dirt, on gravel roads or on the hillsides. So it's really incredible to see one of the endemic species of the country, mustached turca. Furnarids, this neotropical family is very numerous in Chile. When you're checking all the prospects are earth creepers, miners, cinclodes, canasteros. So the list is big. All they have in color, they have in common in terms of coloration are shades of gray, brown. So they are LBJs per se, with fantastic vocalization. So that's the first thing you use while birding in the matorral. It's a very productive ecosystem. The largest tyrant flycatcher in the Americas is this bird, red striped tyrant. I've seen them a couple of times hunting on little rodents or hummingbirds even. So it's quite fierce. So this is a region which has its own gems, beautiful birds in the most inhabited part of the country. It's very easy to go from the mountaintops to the coast. Sometimes it sounds like a marketing phrase, but if you can be birding in the Humboldt Current in the morning, watching albatrosses, and at the end of the day, you can be watching Andean condor in the Andes above Santiago. That is totally possible. Torrent duck, one of the other iconic species of the fast-flowing rivers coming down from the mountains. We are shifting region here, Charles. I don't know if so far you want to make some comments.
I'm gonna open up for questions. I do have some questions that I'm gonna cover at the end, folks, just because they're more general questions. But any other questions out there, you can unmute if you want, just and ask your question and then mute back up. And it's a very thorough presentation, so I want to reserve some more time to cover the rest here. Any other questions, folks? All right, there are 2 outstanding questions. I'm going to pick those up at the end. I think you should go ahead with your presentation, folks. And again, all questions are welcome. Texting is the best idea. Thank you. I will hop back off and your presentation is back to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Charles. Well, this is an area. We are progressing south. So we started in the Northern Highlands and the Atacama Desert at latitude 18. We shifted all the way to Santiago area and Valparaiso, which is around 30 degrees south. We are now progressing 10 degrees of latitude all the way down to the Lake District. The Lake District is in a way a very picturesque landscape formed by snow-capped volcanoes, some of them active, and I can say that some are very active. You have lush rainforest of Chilean pine or Araucaria, redwoods, and there is a particular tree genus here which becomes very important, is Nothofagus, so false beech. This tree genus occurs only in the southern hemisphere, and most of the species, around 10, occur in Chile. So that is a very important part of the woodlands here that are interspersed with channels, fjords, and big islands, like the one that we see in this map, which is Chiloé. So we will start. This looks like the David Attenborough, one of the scenes, the famous scenes of Life of Birds, when David Attenborough is trying to call with a stone, banging this tree and calling one big bird after this call or this sound. So it's Magellanic woodpecker. It's one of the largest woodpeckers in the world. Now you can see these 2 males standing on this tall Nothofagus tree. I think it's a lenga. But this is one of the most important iconic species of any itinerary to Chile or southern Argentina. It's an important bird, occupies large territories, so sometimes it's quite difficult to see. So when you are birding here, you will be astounded by the silence of the forest. Sometimes you hear a lot of sounds like Elaenias or maybe siskins or sierra finches, but you are trying to hear this double tap in the trees that can be heard a long way off. So Magellanic woodpecker communicates like that, and you rely on that sound in most of the times to find it. It's one, I would say that's a kind of a spiritual a moment when you see these birds on the magnificent woodlands of Patagonia. Hummingbirds, you can think about the diversity, the radiation of hummingbirds throughout the neotropics, and you will think, oh, perhaps Chile have lots of hummingbirds. But the reality is that we have a very modest number, only 10 species, of which the southernmost species of the whole family is the greenback flycrown. I have seen this little hummingbird hanging around colorful flowers besides a glacier. So they are tough. They tolerate the cold, and probably they live in very adverse conditions throughout the continent. Are important, the Nothofagus trees. There are many species that indicate how healthy are the forests or how affected by man-made activities are. So when you see things like tree runners or rayaditos, or probably this fantastic little bird that its call is explosive and so charismatic and fearless, although skulking at times, is the Chucao tapaculo, living in the bamboo, underneath the bamboo stands in the rainforest. In some places it's very difficult to see. In some of their areas is just ridiculous, because the bird approach to you can explore around your boots. So it's well, that's the part of birding. You can say, I can show you here how many, I can show you species that we perhaps will see, but you will have your own experience with these birds, and you can tell, you can make your own considerations about the excitings. Back in maybe 10 years ago, some British birders were looking at this stone petrel between the ferry from Puerto Montt southwards. And they start to think, oh, there is something weird about this Wilson stone petrel with wings, lots.
Claudio?
This bird in its 10th anniversary. Yes, go.
No, it's okay. It's okay, continue.
Okay, thank you. So this bird.
So Claudio, we lost you for about 5 minutes. If you want to go back and finish the story on Pincoya storm petrel, we got maybe the first. We got back to the British birders and white winged, more white winged. Then we kind of lost you for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's probably my fault, Charles. The connection is not great down here. I live in the woodlands, and sometimes it's lost, it's weak. No, but here we have this bird, this seabird, which is the 10th anniversary for this newly described seabird to science. So that is and it's to describe a seabird species. This and another petrel. Conservation status, nobody knows. No, the International Union for Conservation of Nature status, bird life status, is for this species is DD, data deficient. So there are so many question marks about this bird. Nobody knows where it breeds. Nobody knows the numbers, the basic ecology. So it's an open ground for research, and it's very exciting because perhaps this stone petrel breeds in the highlands, in the forest, in lakes, even in the Argentinian side. So we will probably have more information, and we can discuss when this bird has 20 years since being discovered, probably with more information. But this is really exciting, Pincoya stone petrel. And the name Pincoya refers to the rich mythology of that archipelagic region called Chiloé. And the Pincoya is the mermaid of those seas. It's a beautiful story, Charles. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you fine. We had a little stumble, but we're all good, Fred. Just go. You're doing great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, large things, starting with tiny things like the stone petrel, to these colossal marine mammals such as blue whales occurring around the Chiloé waters. Chiloé is right at the origin of the Humboldt Current. So there are massive movements of population of blue whales was discovered in these waters, especially during the summer months. And around Chiloé, this big island I was talking about, it's not just about birds, it's about the mammals, the particular mammals that occur there. It's very diverse, and all the mammals, the land mammals, are quite small. There are 2 species of otter. And in most of my groups, we always spend some time looking for these rare mammals, like the Darwin's fox, or one of the small cats of Chile, nearly endemic and occurring only on those dense woodlands of Chiloé Island, the cod or guiña. Charles, we are shifting to one of my favorite regions in the country.
Gosh, so we definitely want to save some time for Patagonia. We're going to have a quick wrap up at the end. I'm actually going to freeze questions out and let you go right on to Patagonia. And at the end, we'll catch up with questions. Sorry about that, folks. Just the content, it's too good here. So on to Patagonia, my friend.
Very good. Patagonia is a region. It's part of Chile. We shared between these 2 countries, and there are boundaries, well-defined rivers, mountains, vegetation, and a historic context that defines Patagonia. So this is a birding presentation, but I love travel books. And this gentleman, Bruce Chadwin, wrote a fantastic book on Patagonia, on his experiences traveling through Patagonia from north to south. And I encourage anybody interested in this region to browse around this book. It's a really charming account with lots of interesting facts. But 2020 was the 5th centennial of the discovery of the sailors of the territory. Patagonia is a term coined by Magellan itself. And when Magellan was exploring this region, as many other explorers, the Dutch, the French, the British, Fitzroy, Parker King, Charles Darwin, in 300 years of exploration of Patagonia, they provide incredible accounts about this people that live. of the gauchos, sheep farming stations, vast landscapes, and fantastic geology. And lesson about geology, about glaciers, and you have this, you are birding in these landscapes and finding these intriguing species like rheas, flamingos in abundance in all those wetlands, the alcons of Tierra del Fuego around the Magellan Straits are just magneto for geese, for swans, for ducks and shorebirds. So that is just a scene of a progression of a species, and you are going to see groups of which are strictly found in Patagonia, like the steamer ducks and the swans. But one of the most important groups for people around here are shorebirds, are the waders. Things like the enigmatic Magellanic plover, dotterels like rufous-chested dotterel or tawny-throated dotterel are just a joy when you see these birds on the grasslands we call steppes. Intriguing groups like seed snipes, only 4 species on this genus, on this family, strictly Andean and Patagonian. Predators for all this array of waders are the falcons and the owls. The horned owl no longer in the lands. They are in the open, they occupy the dense, the very vast open areas of the steppe. So groups of songbirds, groups of these flycatchers, like the negritos. All the birds here have a very short season. They occur here between October until February. So they have a very brief window of opportunity to breed, and then immediately they leave towards the pampas of Argentina or farther north to the southern part of Brazil. So many of the birds that I'm showing here are what we call Austral migrants. Austral, the opposite to boreal, southern migrants. They do the opposite migration route from the south where they breed, and during the fall, during the autumn, they migrate northwards to Argentina, to Brazil, to Bolivia or Peru even. Colorful birds like this white-bridled finch, they use the steppe. A brief selection of mammals here, my friends, is quite rich in mammals. I think that the star here is the guanaco, the wild ancestor of the llama, which occurs in big numbers and is the main prey for puma. Mountain lion, puma. Puma is Quechua name, meaning strong and powerful. And this cat is just incredible. And probably the best place to see it in the wild is the National Park of Torres del Paine and the surrounding estancias, where the farmers have detected the opportunity to do business by bringing tourists to see them instead of just hunting them. So that's a good news for conservation down here, because now the guanaco population is controlled by the cat naturally, and that is bringing back a relatively healthy ecosystem. But besides the puma, you have opportunities to see the tiny guys, like the skunks, foxes, or armadillos. Go, Charles.
Yeah, so I got to do a little wrapping up here. Some of this is administrative stuff, and then we're going to get to some of those good questions. So just one, we always have to plug the privacy angle here. We've actually done an excellent job of now mentioning anybody's name today, but if for some reason you feel like your name got mentioned and you want us to delete it from the video, just email us at service@pibird.com. The next bit is just, blatant advertising, but it does involve the pandemic. So for anybody who missed our pre-tour conversation, Chile is about 25% vaccinated as we speak, something they've accomplished in the last week. We anticipate by June, the entire country of 18 million people will be vaccinated. So running birding tours this fall and next year, I think are an absolute thing. I've truly had 4 Chilean bookings for late this fall and early next year in the last half a day. So if you're interested in doing Chilean birding tours, please just email me at charles@pibird.com, and phone calls are always welcome at 720-320-1974. And we do keep our group small, 8 people. We always have premier local guides like Claudio, Vidal on all of our tours. I think that's enough advertising. I'm going to go back to the questions. One great question is there hooded grebe breeding in Chilean Patagonia, and are those areas accessible to birders? Claudio, did you get that question?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you so very.
Oh, yeah.
well.
So, are hooded grebes breeding in Chilean Patagonia, and are those sites accessible for bird watching? We're having some sound. Oh,
We've lost
Claudio, you got to unmute there, friend.
we've lost his screen.
I think he's back. I'm going to put him on spotlight as well. Claudio, I think you're muted.
I think that I can hear you now, and you can repeat the question, please.
Yep, sure. So a question that we got was, I forgot the question. Give me a second to get the text. Is hooded grebe breeding in Chilean Patagonia? And
well,
is it
hooded grebe it breeds strictly on the Argentinian territory. So it's pretty much out of reach, and is well protected by the guys of Aves Argentinas. They're protecting the breeding grounds, and they are. And besides, it breeds mostly in the Santa Cruz province in southern Argentina. So those places are accessible obviously from Argentina. But in Chile, it's still in the category of vagrant.
Great. Hey, we're running a little short on time, folks. So we're probably going to do another 5-10 minutes to cover some of these questions. One question we got, Claudio, was, do some people have either altitude or I suppose altitude sickness issues when they do the Santiago bit, where they're getting starting the morning at sea level birding and ending the day at high altitude? How high of an altitude are you going on that day?
Well, the high altitude, really the high altitude will be in the northern extension. So if people have those issues, I wouldn't recommend to join that section. Birding in Santiago or in the Andes above Santiago, maximum altitude will be 10,000 feet. And we will be at that altitude only for maybe a whole afternoon. So really the effects will be minimum. So I don't think that is a big issue. The altitude from central Chile all the way to south is all the areas, mostly lowlands, below 2,000 meters.
Exactly. All righty. let's see. We've got that. We talked about the COVID thing. We talked about hooded grebes. Oh, um, in the introduction, you talk a lot about looking at the history and natural history of the place, including explorers. There was one photo that looked like some indigenous folks.
Yes.
How do you, deal with, you must discuss indigenous people because it's part of the history of Chile, but I don't want to speak out of turn. And so the question is, how do you cover indigenous cultures on the tour?
I like to do that, and that's probably part of our style as a company, because we don't want to just concentrate on birds. Obviously, birds are important; it's the subject of discussion. But from in times when we are sharing dinner, sharing a glass of wine, we have the opportunity to talk about the indigenous peoples, the history, the natural history. There is always a chance to botanize a little bit. So to talk about the plants, to talk about the reptiles, to see other aspects of natural history, Charles, on our tours.
Yep.
In the
So
right
I
measure.
I hope we answered that question successfully. And truly, it is a birding wildlife natural history tour. But as Claudio said, they do cover some historical aspects and other cultural aspects as well, including beyond the European explorers, but also the indigenous people. I think I got that right. All right, my friend. The next question is it should be an easy one. You've got 5 pelagic tours. 2 of them are ferry boats. On the 3 non-ferry boat tours, do you guys chum or no?
Yes, we do. We chum in the pelagic trip of Valparaiso in the north, then the one in the Chiloé island. Yes, we use chum for the birds.
Chum. My friend Chum, you do chum away. My chum.
Absolutely.
Claudio, Chile, they chum.
Doesn't smell nice in the very early morning, but things are like just like that.
Great. Any other questions, folks? You can unmute or ask away. I think we have, I don't know, we have a huge crowd left at this point, but let me see if I can get that number without.
I just wanted to make a comment about Chile.
Yeah.
I just think Chile is the most beautiful country in South America, and the birding was fantastic, but there was always something to look at, whether there was a bird in view or not.
Thank you.
Exactly. Great. Any other questions or comments? We'll probably just be on for another 2 minutes and we'll close off because we're about 4 minutes over as we speak. Anything else, folks?
Claudio, could you please repeat the ferry crossing where the Pincoya storm petrels were seen, please?
You want the story, or you want to, I didn't hear you so well.
Oh, I think he wanted the name of the ferry crossing for the Pincoya.
Okay. Yes, is the ferry crossing? Is the ferry crossing from Puerto Montt to Puerto Natales? That is the long ferry crossing. That's where all these seabirders saw the bird by first digital photographs, the very first ones. So, but then you can actually have chances to see Pincoya by using the ferry across the Chacao Channel to Chiloé Island, or one of the or the ferries going, any of the ferries going south of Puerto Montt. You have chances with this bird.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Great. Any other questions? That was a great one. We'll probably just take 1 or 2 more questions. Go ahead.
I have a question about equipment. I noticed that a lot of people have these very expensive telephoto lenses, and I have a very good pair of binoculars, nice binoculars that I've had more than 30 years. But on one of these trips, is there an opportunity to rent, to hire any of the equipment like that? Because I actually live in Colombia and I've been to Chile many times. It's a beautiful country, but to carry these heavy telephoto lenses on a plane or to carry around with you is always a great risk for security as well.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
and,
thank you for the question.
Yeah, I'll actually answer that question. On all of our tours, the guides carry a scope, and clients should always bring a good pair of binoculars. In my mind, also a good pair of boots, at least 2 changes of shoes. But I mean, you are not required to haul a big camera anywhere. And we're actually working on a system, you know, Leo is out there, to just have people share quality photos after the tour,
Yeah.
and not to discourage photography, but just to share in the wealth of that beauty and record of the trip. Did I cover that pretty well, Claudio? Great, welcome. Great question. We'll take one more question. Anything else? Okay, hearing none, we're going to sign off. Hey, Claudio, fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to call you on WhatsApp to just confirm those bookings here in a shake of a stick. But thank you very much. And others, please contact us about Chile birding tours. Again, Charles at pibird.com. My number of the States is 720-320-1974. Leo, do you have that UK number handy? Do you want to put that out there?
Well, in the
Maybe
meantime,
not. But in the meantime, we will send more.
thank you very much for doing.
Yep. Hey, you guys, thanks. It was great. It was fun. And thank you for all the questions.
Thank you very much. Keep safe, and thanks for the opportunity, Charles, and for everybody for being so patient.
Thank you, Claudio.
Thank you.
Thank you.